Welcome to the story I very nearly could not tell. On this rib trip, we will take you right to the middle of the island of Ireland and along a beautiful stretch of its greatest waterway. Starting in Loughree, we will run 20 miles upstream and back. This is our longest rib run so far. We will take you ashore on a beautiful uninhabited island, and as usual, we will take you along with us through the boating challenges and manoeuvres that we found along the way. In exploring Ireland, you can take your inspiration from so many in history. The place is riddled with it. But in taking fast boats up the mighty River Shannon, who better in history to inspire us than the Vikings? Their moral compass was not known for its accuracy, but their navigation was. Who could fail to admire the extent of their travels and the versatility, endurance, and sheer capability of their fast and intrepid longships? This is Loughree, right in the middle of Ireland, and we know the Vikings came here. They had a stronghold in Athlone to seaward of here and raided far inland from here. They managed to reach all the way up to Lough Erne back in the 9th century, where raids were recorded. In a time where we Irish have convinced ourselves that the happiness of escape is best bought up at the airport, maybe it's time we in Ireland also followed the adventures back through our own bloodlines towards home and our own past from time to time. Take that bit of Viking blood you probably still have running in your veins if you are Irish, and come along and explore. If you're not Irish at all, then play the Viking for a while and come along for a raid on the Irish heartland. As you will see, it is a beautiful, watery and wintry wonderland. By the end of this video, I hope that we will have passed on enough information for this video to serve as your passage plan, so that any part of this trip would be easily repeatable by anyone with a rib or a boat and a trailer. I hope also that it will inspire people to get out and enjoy this amenity. This is my Nividic 550 from 3D Tender, a French company with manufacturing of the hull taking place in China and assembly in France. It was then commissioned in Ireland in 2023 with a 100 horsepower Suzuki motor. Her top speed is 35 knots, but we'll sit at about 25 knots today for fuel endurance.
25 is a really kind of economic speed to go, because you're just sitting on top of the waves, but you're not really burning too much petrol.
I am travelling today in convoy, however, with this capable rib. It belongs to a friend and colleague of mine called Morris. Morris and I have known each other far longer than either of us could ever have afforded boats like these, so it's nice to travel like this today. This rib is a Valiant EP16 with a Mariner 115 horsepower engine. At 5.7 metres long and built in 2009, she shows none of those years. She has a substantial 125 litre petrol tank and burns 18.5 litres per hour at 4,000 RPM while doing about 25 knots. Similar enough figures to my own, so these two boats are an ideal pairing for a long trip like this. Flat out, this boat just touches about 40 knots with two up and full fuel. The cool wind blew from the north on this March morning. There was a chop running on Loughree, but it was well within the comfort zone for these boats. We will run today from Kusan all the way up to Turman. If you want to do this trip at speed, this trip is best done off-season. In the summer, many of these channels we navigate today are likely to be busy with slow-moving traffic. Both bylaws and common courtesy determine that passing at slow speed is then advised. Today though, a chilly March day in 40-odd miles of navigation, we saw only one other boat. So cold be damned, this is the time to go if you want to go at speed. It'll do your boat good to burn the salt out of your engine, and it'll do you good right there amongst the shorter days when you need the outdoors more than ever. Clear the winter mind with a blast of our beautiful inland outdoors. I was using Navionics on the iPad, and also this was the first trip out of the box for the new Garmin Echo Map. GPS really is a gift in this kind of navigation at speed, but the Shannon waterway enjoys excellent voyage also. There is in human nature a flawed thinking that tends to believe the group is right. It's called groupthink and is a psychological phenomenon that occurs in cohesive groups where the desire for conformity overrides critical thinking. Don't fall for this if you're traveling in convoy. That is to say, don't just follow thy leader. The man that serviced my Suzuki could show me some of the shrapnel that was left of the props and gearboxes of 3 boats that followed each other around the wrong side of an island. They did so at speed. Never lose track of your own sense of position, regardless of any other boat. It is human nature to fall for this painful mistake. Keelan was new to boating on this day, but was a natural behind the wheel, and the navigation was second nature to him also. I didn't waste time getting him up to speed, because later on I wanted to get the drone up, and then he would be on his own. Speed restrictions are usually posted as appropriate along the route, but obviously marinas and bridges would be standard points of caution too. We are passing the Lansbr area here, and it looked like a nice spot to pause on a sunny day. Vikings who arrived in Ireland in 795 AD initially engaged in raids and later settled in various coastal regions, including areas along the Shannon. The Viking used the Shannon and the Erne as major highways, maintaining a fleet here on Lough Ree with a skiphaven or fortified ship base, called by the Irish a Longfort, hence the name for County Longford. People talk about the beauty in the world a lot. They talk about the beauty of nature and our entire universe in all its forms, but not so often do they talk of the beauty of motion itself. Just as there is elegance in the framing and proportion of still photography, to my mind there is also the same in the framing of motion itself. There is in my mind such a thing as poetry in motion. In an unstoppable world, it makes sense that our eye finds elegance in the motion of all things just as much as those things themselves. It is as addictive as any view. It draws a biker into the corners, it draws the aviator down to hug the terrain that would kill him, or draws a sailor's hand at the helm towards the shoreline, upon which he may also perish. Even though all these things beckon us to danger, it is the beauty of our world, not just being there, but in motion, that draws us in regardless. Just beyond a certain line lies danger, and just before it lies this sense of speed, of poetry in motion. It seems that travelling in a convoy like this brings this satisfaction to the eye like a thick and sugary icing over the view, at least in my eye. It turns it even sweeter than it already is. The Shannon is a well-marked and well-mapped waterway, and so it is a great place to seek this feeling out, or, as I would have it, to be a Vista trekker.
That must be the dock there, I suppose.
Turman is the site of the first lock gates we would meet upstream of Athlone. We decided to end our upstream direction here. The lads headed into the village to buy coffee, but I had bought my own, so I stayed and enjoyed this quiet little spot by the water for a while. Interestingly, the Royal Canal meets the Shannon here. Technically, we could also take the canal back to Dublin from here. Here's food for thought. 200 years ago, 3,000 men a day had just spent 27 years building the Royal Canal, 90 miles of it, hard labour inch by inch, 46 locks between here and Dublin. 200 years ago, it also carried 80,000 tonnes of cargo and 40,000 passengers a year. This was the only boat we met all day. The rest of the time, the mighty Shannon was all our own. As we ran south along the channel, my engine was about to fail. I didn't know it, of course, but I want you to hear and see the signs and sounds and the steps that follow. That is the sound of fuel starvation. Coming back to idle as soon as possible may help a little with preventing shock cooling of the engine, but the end is near, and so is the shore. So the troubleshooting begins. Step 1, test the bulb on the fuel line. If it's soft, you do not have fuel. I tried squeezing it and it remains soft. Step 2, problem solving. This took me forward to the auxiliary tank. Thinking I would just switch to that, I would soon realise my mistake.
Take it from the other tank.
Step 3, slap on the wrist. I simply had the wrong tank selected.
It has been taken it from that one. That is empty.
It is smaller than the main tank, which is why it ran out sooner than I expected.
All right, we're good. We're good. They're coming back for us now.
We live and learn. I thought I had already learned this one before now, I suppose, but perhaps I was a little rusty after the winter, so it snuck up and it got me again.
2 boats go out and no boats come back.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. What are the odds? Oh sure, we got all that on tape. Big drama. It all comes back, yeah.
The trip into wind would have beaten the drone, but with the wind at our backs now heading south again, the drone kept up nicely. It was a cold March day, but with the wind with us now, you wouldn't really feel it. No episode of this series would be complete without a visit to an island. On our way south, we decided on a stop at Nuns Island. The island takes its name from a time in 1641 when a group of 30 nuns took exile on this island from the advancing British. I might swap with you there, Keelan, and the inlet there where it is. The trouble is the wind straight across it might not be too easy. I kept the engine trimmed as high as I could approaching this unfamiliar and rocky shore. Can I go higher on that without? Yeah. Today, Nuns Island is owned by a man by the name of Kieran O'Connor. The good news for this trip is that some 20 years ago, both myself and Morris used to work for Kieran, so getting permission to spend some time here was not hard for us. The little sheltered arrival to this island was not without its perils. Downwind to port here, there are a few nasty rocks. I'll have to go downwind to him, but if I start upwind to him... And the breakwaters themselves, while providing ideal shelter once you are on the beach, present a rocky reception for any mishandled hull inbound in this crosswind. Holding enough weight to control the boat as we crabbed in across the wind and waves worked well, and once inside the breakwater, we could settle comfortably onto the downwind side and then onto the small gravel beach. Kieran and his family are regulars out here as both visitors and stewards to this historical island and its ruins, but today we had it to ourselves. That wasn't too bad actually, I thought that was going to go worse. There you go, sir. When we shut down our engines, there was only the chatter of a few old friends to be heard on the breeze and the ever peaceful sound of the wind in the reeds and the waves lapping on that pebbled shore. I know we all got stuck there. Yeah. That was a good second. Yeah, that was Leaving Nuns Island, the sun was low, but if the clouds rolled back for a while, there was still more in the day. They did roll back a little, and so we carried on. Ever the tester at the wheel, it seems, but I couldn't resist a little fun in the wake of the Valiant as we approached Kusan Point. This would complete our 40-mile round trip. However, there is a branch of Lough Ree that runs further east from here. Wineport Lodge is in here, and there are two little narrow channels that lead into little hidden interconnected lakes or bays.
That's enough messing.
It's good that somebody finally drove it on instead of my pussyfooting around the place, you know?
No, we would have run out of fuel long ago if it wasn't for a bit of caution.
Somebody that knows how to drive, you know?
Well, I'm also always kind of exploring a little bit just to see how it behaves, like, you know, because I mean it's one thing to run up the middle of the wake, but you kind of want to be comfortable with what happens if it goes wrong as well. You know, it's just learning the machine a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it does make like a fair bit of weight.
It does when it's slow, yeah.
Low power.
There is a frustrating irony with ribs that they often create a bigger wake as you slow them down from the plane, which of course is often contrary to the intention.
Bit of a rhythm there. Through that gap is right.
We had previously been here in the summer, but it was lovely to see it again in all of its winter colour.
So now we'll increase our wake obviously as we go through the narrow channel.
The low and wintry light was beautiful on the lake at this hour as the evening drew in.
But there's a campsite at the end of this little inlet. Yeah, down here, Bag's Hop Lodge. Remember John Gale? He used to keep a boat and a caravan in there, I think. I find that, like looking in there, I find that a mesmerising kind of habitat, you know? Just all the reeds and full of wildlife not out in the spring.
Definitely something you wouldn't be used to seeing around Dublin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, isn't it? There must be like willow or something, mustn't they? Be a lovely place for a canoe as well, though, wouldn't it? For all the speed.
Speed is more fun though, isn't it?
I suppose each has its place. I'm just going to get the lines ready.
On our final return to Kusan Point, I brought the boat to a stop to prepare the lines for berthing. Preparation is key in any berthing exercise, but however, in the next few minutes, I do still narrowly avoid a painful loss. So the manoeuvre goes well. I pick a lead berth and she settles alongside easily, but I unclip my life jacket, forgetting what else was hooked into the same strap.
Thanks, Morris.
I had two GoPros on this day, one with a float and one with a heavy extra battery handle attached.
Let the Land Rover.
Good spin.
That's great, Morris.
Oh, that was close.
Too close. It's too close. Yeah, that was close.
Anybody who knows GoPros will know which one these two had most of the footage on it. That's right, the one with the battery, the one that sinks. My camera very nearly fell to 7 meters to the muddy bottom where she might join the layered ages of swords or Viking loot from our past. I don't mind admitting that I would not have followed it down to the bottom. 7 meters is a long way. We burned 36 litres on my boat for this trip. Morris burned similar, well over 40 miles generally at about 25 knots. I don't normally intend to cover these kind of distances on a day out. I am as happy exploring on a smaller scale, but in terms of learning the lay of the land and the water here in the inland waterways of Ireland, this was an invaluable trip for me. For the ground covered, this was a fair cost. So the camera was not lost. The story I very nearly could not tell could be told in the end. We raced by the rocks for hours and still bent nothing. But there's nothing in life that can't be broken, certainly not a Land Rover. And so as I pulled into my hometown that evening, the familiar ping of a new fault welcomed me back to reality with yet another fix to find.
3, 2, 1.
But it didn't matter. My escape was worth it. And anyway, I fixed that fault in the end. Invigorated by our trip, I went after it like a Viking hunting for gold, and so, after a while hiding up in the mighty round tower of air suspension faults, it too surrendered. Thanks especially to Mick for some great camera work in the Valiant, and of course, dare I say it, for not dropping his camera.